Baba knows the way. For Joseph Baba Ifa, Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. Where only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗿 Got Candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. What's up, Phil?
Hey, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, brother.
What's going on, man?
Another week in the books, man. How about you?
Yeah, life is good, man. I'm glad. Every time we come here together, it's always magic, man.
It's always nice, man.
Always magic.
We get the job done for sure.
Yes, sir. Speaking of getting the job done, guys, if you want to know a little bit more and you want to join our membership program, you can. It's real simple. Hit that button right under this video. It says join. That's it.
Definitely, guys, get in there if you can find some value in it and know somebody that can, get in there. Exclusive content, videos, and interactions with us. Another thing that we'll go ahead and mention as well is our workshops are steadily coming up upon us. Next one is going to be in Atlanta, I believe June 13th and 14th, right, Phil?
So you have two.
Yeah, we have, yeah.
Right,
absolutely.
so Atlanta, June 13th and 14th,
Exciting.
and New York City.
Oh, man, can't wait.
August 8th and 9th.
Oh, absolutely, guys. So, yeah, Orlando was a big success. We can't wait to repeat those things for all of the viewers in Atlanta and New York, where we have a pretty big demographic as well when we look at the, the credentials and the statistics and whatnot. So we're excited to be able to go visit you guys and have 2 fun-filled days full of Ifa and Orisha.
All right, so what are we talking about today?
Today we're continuing with our Ogbe series with the Odu Ogbe Hunle, or Ojuani, also known as Ogbe Hunle.
Spell that for me, please.
So Hunle is, well, first Ogbe is O-G-B-E. You're probably familiar with that one at this point. But Hunle is H-U-N-L-E. So really big sign. I think one that's misunderstood. There was some pretty well-known 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗏, in Cuba that had this Odu as well. I believe 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏 was Ogbe Hunle, very well-known director as well, knowledgeable guy from what I understood and what I've been told about him. But it's an Odu of a lot of knowledge. It's an Odu of a lot of mysteries within it, and definitely one that if somebody's going to study it, they really need to take their time because there's a lot of information and literature, and you want to make sure you don't misinterpret it. So, but to start off with, today I'm wearing my black polo in honor of this Odu because this Odu says your destiny will be as dark as the feathers of a crow.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
So easy to misinterpret, right? So when we look at this Odu, it speaks of a pataki, where the crow or the raven went for divination, right? And when it went for divination, the reason it was doing this was because it felt like it was being bullied. The white doves would mistreat it because they didn't like the way he looked. They didn't like the way he sounded. Obviously, his black plumage was very different from the others. So he decided to visit 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏 to see how he could be more accepted. And when the Odu Ogbe Hunle was revealed, 𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏 told the crow the same thing that I just mentioned. Your destiny will be as black as your feathers and as dark as your feathers. And the crow was a little perplexed. He said, I came here for betterment and progress, and you're telling me that things aren't going to get better. He said, no, you think things aren't going to get better because you're equating darkness to negativity. On the contrary, you need to embrace yourself and embrace those who embrace you. If you're being yourself and other people don't accept you, there's no reason for you to try to become accepted by them rather than trying to accept yourself. And the crow quickly realized that he wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and that was okay. If he wasn't accepted by a certain group, either he would find another one or create his own. And that's why, if you notice, crows fly with crows and doves fly with doves. Till this day, the crow shows this behavior where it's around like-minded individuals who accept each other. So this Odu of Ogbe Hunle says, it's important to be accepted, but the most important person to be accepted by is yourself. The crow was looking for confirmations from other people, when in reality, he never needed them. And actually, the color black here is an ideal and favorable one. So you see this phenomenon within Ifa and Orisha where they say, oh, you can't wear black. Black is negative. It attracts negativity, all of these different things. But Ogbe Hunle, amongst other Odus, is actually one of the Odus or signs that says why black is a favorable color based on this sign. So if you have this sign in initiation, similar to Odus like 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗃𝗍 or 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗍, and a couple other ones, it's actually ideal. I think 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 speaks of it as well. The color black is ideal. So every now and again, if not majority of the time, the color black here is actually, quite favorable. Kind of makes me think of Edgar Allan Poe, right? The guy, what was that famous poem where he would hear the knocking and it drove him insane?
Wasn't it The Raven?
I think it was, right?
Yeah, quote the
Yeah. He heard the ticking or the tapping.
Yeah, underneath the house.
I still remember that poem from high school, man, when we actually studied that literature and as far as poetry goes.
Yeah.
Mom, it's ironic. Mom's a flight attendant, right? So she's all over the world, but she actually stays at that hotel over there in Baltimore.
No way.
Right? Yeah, they say it's haunted and stuff like that. She's really not impressed. Yeah, I guess, she's seen enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, she's seen enough. So.
She's seen enough spirits already, but she's like, yeah, whatever. So, it's pretty funny. But, this is the Odu of the crow. Ogbe Hunle. This Odu speaks heavily of the Orisha Oshun, right? There's other ones here too. Eshu, Egungun. We're going to get into all of them. But Oshun here is very important. I've actually met a couple brothers who are children of Oshun with this Odu. And in this sign, Oshun had to be very careful because her health was declining. And because of it, she went to visit Orunmila, right? Now, while she's on her way, Orunmila had actually attended another client, which were the hens, or the hen. The hen here, there's various versions of the story, but basically she insulted Orula. Either she didn't do the recommendations when this Odu was revealed, or she did the ebo, but she never paid for it. Either way, Orunmila wasn't too bothered by it, but who was very bothered by it was Eshu, because who takes personal offense for the disrespect of Orunmila is Eshu. Orunmila usually actually doesn't care that much. So the hen insulted Orula, berated him, and left his home. He was like, whatever. And then Oshun came, and the same Odu was revealed, that of Ogbe Hunle, where Ifa said she needed to make offerings to Eshu to be able to resolve her health situation, which she did. And when she did, Eshu said, hey, meet me by the river. And what occurred was the hen or the hens would make their way by the river to be able to, I don't know, get water, eat worms, etc., whatever their daily routine was. But based on their disrespect of Orunmila, Eshu kidnapped them. They were like, oh, how dare you do this? You can't do this. You're not going to get away with this. And Oshun was arriving at the river basically half dead because her condition was worsening. This is an Odu that speaks of conditions like tuberculosis, anemia, osteoporosis. It speaks of a lot of degenerative conditions. So when she was basically on her last leg, Eshu sacrificed the hens to feed her, right? And she started consuming the hens, right? And as she did this, she started feeling better and better and better until she got to an optimal level. Once she was able to find that equilibrium mentally, she was able to focus and have a conversation with Eshu, and she said, what did I just eat? He said, well, you just ate the hens. Well, she's like, why did you feed them to me? He said, well, they disrespected Orula, and apart from that, you looked like you needed something nutritious. And she said, from this day forward, this will be my predilect food. This is what I need to be able to function. So whether it's when we're consecrating an Oshun icon, whether it's on an annual Orisha festival, or in general, Oshun usually leans towards the hens because of this Odu. And this sign, based on her symptoms, she was lethargic, she was tired, she was lackadaisic, like she really couldn't function. So whatever those symptoms could be attributed to is whatever she was suffering from here. Maybe she was anemic, any of these different things. And the hens actually assisted her in regaining her health. So that was great for Oshun, right? So this Odu says, from a health standpoint, it definitely needs to be a priority to avoid situations and phenomenons that could lead to a negative end. But we also have to analyze what happened to the hens here. The hens, because of their bad behavior, suffered an untimely end. So this Odu speaks of the importance of having iwa and good character to be able to, grow and achieve the things that we want and need. So very key there. But for anybody that has the Odu of Ogbe Hunle, I would say on an annual basis, they definitely need to give hens to Oshun just to keep that constant flow and alignment with that energy and deity, right? Very key. The Odu Ogbe Hunle speaks heavily of the Orisha Egungun as well. This is actually the Odu, and we went over this in the How to Take Care of Egungun video. This is the Odu where the tile of Egun first manifested, or 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗲 de Egun. A lot of people say it's an innovation, which ultimately it is, at least in the shape it's in. I mean, clay pottery has been seen in Africa since antiquity. But the reason that this specific shape was identified and allotted for Egungun has a much more profound reason that's found within this Odu 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗍. So it basically speaks of a story where, you know, a central ancestor was buried, right? A cadaver. And it was unattended to. Right? Over time, epidemic and negativity started presenting themselves. Divination was performed. The Odu Ogbe Hunle was revealed where Ifa said they needed to perform sacrifice to Egungun and the earth. So when they opened the hole, they found this petrified mass, which the body had basically converted into this hard piece of clay, which was what ultimately is now known and seen as the tile. So they exhumed it. They put it in an accessible place so that it would never be forgotten again. And from that point forward, the tile became an essential part of the Egungun altar, right? Or Ibale, as it's known. And till this day, we still incorporate it, right? They say that the tile is meant to be reminiscent of a human body, specifically the thoracic cavity, right? Where the curved part, from an exterior standpoint, represents the male aspect, that which is protruding, and the inner part represents the female aspect, or that which is receptive. The outer part usually gets painted with Oturanico, and the inner part gets painted with 𝗿𝗲𝗍𝗏, each of them representing the masculine and feminine Egun, right? I remember when I gave the tile for a long time, I would actually paint Ogbe Hunle on it as well, just out of concepts, you know, being it was born there, you know, but technically you could paint all 256 signs or none of them on the tile because all of them speak of some aspect of Egungun. But in this Odu is why in the Afro-Cuban Lukumi tradition of Ifa, we incorporate the tile because it was there one time when they went to actually feed Egungun, or they wanted a much more convenient way of doing so without falling into taboo.
Got it.
So Ogbe Hunle is an Odu, you know, when we talk about Eshu, it's very, very key as well. And this sign was where death wanted to consume Orula or destroy him. And Orunmila had pretty good habits, but he was becoming a little busy and it was difficult to keep up with all of his responsibilities, but he would still do his best to keep his spirituality up to par. But on one day when he was planning on actually not attending, death was going to come and visit him and take him, and Eshu did not want this to occur. So Eshu, who lived at the front of Orumila's door, actually, you know, knocked and told Orula, I think you should read yourself today. And he said, oh, I'm really busy. I got a bunch of things going on. Like, you know, I have a really good schedule, but today I might not be able to. And Eshu was like, you really should think about reading yourself today. So Orula kind of looked at him and said, okay. So he sat down and threw the chain, and Ogbe Hunle or Ojuani was revealed, where Ifa told him to make offerings to Eshu, right? In some cases, it said over the course of 4 days, there was 4 offerings right there, or whatever it may be, but he made offerings to Eshu. At least in the case of this story, it was various food items, right? Fish, rat, corn, red palm oil, etc. And Orula actually found it funny. He said, you know, if you wanted an offering, you could have just told me. He said, no, there's something bigger going on. Just go about your day now. So he fed Eshu, and at that moment, death arrived. And death was going to invade or burglarize Orumila's home to take him. But Eshu was at the door, and Eshu said, hey, 𝗀𝗶𝗱𝗏, how are you? And death looked down and saw Eshu and said, oh my God, my brother, how are you? It's been a while. He said, yes, what are you doing here? He said, no, I think I'm going to kill Orula because he keeps saving a bunch of people with this hand of Ifa nonsense. And Eshu was like, you know, I'm really tired of him too, to be honest with you. Why don't you eat with me and spend some time with me, and then you can go kill him? And Death was like, that sounds great. We haven't spent time in a long time. So Death started consuming the food. When he was tired of talking to Eshu and, eating the appetizer, he said, all right, I'm going to go into Orula's house and kill him now. And Eshu looked at him and said, you can't kill he who feeds you. And he looked at Eshu and he looked at the food and he realized that he had been tricked. And he said, wow, you know, because of you, I'm not going to be able to kill this guy. But make sure he always takes care of you and does this so that he can avoid me, because if not, I'm going to take him. So Death was going on his merry way, and ironically, Orula was about to leave that day for work. And when he walked outside, he saw Death's back. And he was like, oh, man. And when he looked to the side, he saw Eshu, and Eshu looked at him and said, aren't you happy you fed me? You know? So in this Odu was where the 𝘃cie Ifa first manifested. Oshe means I work, Ifa means Ifa. So in this Odu was where the Ifa work week manifested, where every day is dedicated to a different Orisha in a 4-week cyclical pattern, right? In the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 tradition, it isn't as prevalent, even though we do incorporate those themes without realizing that we're falling under the umbrella that is 𝘃cie Ifa. But it basically is reiterating the importance of being on top of your Orishas and deities, even sometimes on a daily basis, to make sure negativity and phenomenon doesn't reach us. Because had it not been for those offerings he made to Eshu, Eshu wouldn't have been able to use Orumila's offerings for Death to be able to avoid him. So it's very important for anybody that has those capabilities to do a daily checkup to make sure everything's okay. It's not that it has to be a full reading, but if we could ask, hey, do I need to do anything today? Is there anything I could do to mitigate certain factors, or do I have to do nothing? Whatever it may be, at least you know you put yourself in the best position to succeed that day. So this is the Odu of the 𝘃cie Ifa. Ogbe Hunle is very important. Besides the 𝘃cie Ifa, when we talk about Eshu once again, this is actually the Odu of the Yangi stone, which is actually the laterite stone that Eshus are constructed in a 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 practice. So if you look at the Odu of Ojuani Chobe, it's actually where our modern form of Eshu first manifested, where the cowrie shells represent his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his ears, things like that. But in the Odu of Ogbe Hunle, you know, the older version speaks of the Yangi stone, right? And how it kind of encompasses Eshu. So being that it does, you have to be able to call that energy back, right? There's a big misconception that is refuted in the Odu of Ogbe Hunle that says the Orishas live within their implements. No, they don't live in the icon. We have to be able to have certain things there to be able to summon that energy based on our verse, oriki, etc. So in this sign is where Eshu actually became housed within the Yangi stone, right? He went for divination. He was looking for a home. He was told to make offerings either at the river or the ocean, because you can find them either place. And when he discovered the Yangi, he decided to become synonymous with it and incorporate himself in it. That's why when you look at traditional Eshus, they usually don't have a face. You might see Eshu 𝗿𝗏𝗏, which is very similar to the Eshu 𝗿𝗏𝗏 within the 𝘃𝗶𝗏𝗏. But, you know, for the majority of the time, the Eshus are simply the Yangi stone, the cowrie shells in the form of an Odu, and, you know, very simple and streamlined and extremely effective. For anybody who hasn't received any of the traditional Eshus, they're wonderful. But that actually manifested here. Why the format of the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 Eshu looks very different from the one in the 𝘃𝗶𝗏𝗏, even though both of them ultimately have this thing called a rock. And all of that manifested here in the Odu of Ogbe Hunle. The Odu of Ogbe Hunle speaks heavily of Eshu once more. In this Odu, it speaks a lot about issues with the health. In this sign, Eshu felt weak, kind of like how Oshun felt when she ate the hens. Eshu was going through a similar situation. Ogbe Hunle was revealed, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice at the river. Based on how much he had helped Oshun previously, Oshun saw how he was feeling and said, you know, I need to help him now. And she actually helped him catch a fish, which in this specific case in the book, it says biahaka, right? And in this sign, Eshu actually started consuming fish, right? And between the omega-3s, all the vitamins, nutrients, and things, and the proteins he was able to garner from it, he became a big fan of it. So this is actually one of the Odus why we offer fish to Eshu. So everybody who does their monthly or better said, forgive me, their weekly routine with the warriors, fish is always incorporated, right? 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁, 𝗃𝗏𝗋, and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏.
Does the fish matter? Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Type
The
of
fish, it says it's a 𝗃𝗲𝗃, so it's like a kind of catfish almost. You know, but there's various, you know, interpretations. But ultimately, any kind of fish, like it could literally be catfish, it could be any kind of fish you could think of. Ultimately, a sardine, what have you. But usually the one that's used the most is smoked herring or mackerel. You know, in its most like charred, like smoked form. He's very partial to those. So, you know, in this Odu, he needed all those nutrients to be able to function, because all he would eat was rooster, goat, you know, candies, all these different things. And Olodumare and Orula were like, hey, I know you enjoy those things, but sometimes you can't enjoy everything you eat, or you have to learn to enjoy new things so that your health won't suffer, because Eshu was eating all the wrong things, and it was making him less effective and less energetic, which affected his job, because he was the one who would take the ebo from earth to heaven back and forth all the time. So on the wrong diet, that could be practically impossible. So in this Odu, Eshu had to incorporate the fish, like so many people should. You know, it's a positive protein source and provides a lot of benefits. But anybody with this Odu should make really fish and poultry the basis of their protein when it comes to their diet. Because if you look, Eshu ate fish, and then Oshun ate hens, right, or chicken. So, you know, it's an Odu that says, you know, you might not have too many occasions where it's favorable to eat red meat, right? Not that it's taboo, but you definitely want to make the chicken and the fish the foundation of your dietary staples. Yeah. Okay. So, Ogbe Hunle, once again, Eshu, right? There's a funny story here. In this sign, it speaks of a carpenter. And the carpenter was very talented, extremely. But he didn't have a lot of business sense. He actually didn't know as much about business as he thought he did. So he went for divination, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice to Eshu. In some versions, he gave him the fish, or something more conventional like a rooster, what have you. But either way, Eshu was very pleased. So he looked at the carpenter and said, you have a lot of inventory and you have a lot of talent, but you don't have a lot of know-how, and that's why you haven't sold anything. So if you align yourself with me, I'll make sure you never are lacking for work or money. And the carpenter was like, what do you want? And he said, well, I want 1%. And he said, what do you mean? He said, of every offering that you receive, I want $1, right? So the carpenter was like, okay, that shouldn't be too difficult. So he started doing the work, and Eshu, based on this compromise, actually started bringing people to his workshop, right? So they'd buy a chair here, a sofa here, a cabinet here, and every time he would sell something, he would take $1 and give it to Eshu. That's why if you notice, the costs and prices within Ifa always have the number 1 at the end. For example, let's say you're going to do an ebo, and the ebo is $500. There's always a 1 at the end, and most people are like, man, who does that 1 belong to? It belongs to Eshu. So the guy started doing great business. He started breaking Eshu off with the tax. And, you know, he started having more clientele than he could handle, right? So needless to say, he started becoming tired and overworked, and he was doing a lot of things to the point where he started forgetting to give Eshu the $1. So Eshu had patience in the beginning, but with time, he became a little frustrated and annoyed because, you know, he had always made sure that Ogbe Hunle had clientele, and he couldn't even take the time and decency to give him his $1 every time, right? So Eshu became insulted, and because of it, he actually sent termites to all of the furniture pieces he had sold. So imagine, you know, we bought these chairs from Ogbe Hunle, right? And we're doing this recording, and all of a sudden the chair just falls apart. Mm-hmm. So needless to say, people were very frustrated. So they went running back to Ogbe Hunle and said, yo, your product is lacking. Like, you know, look at all of our chairs. They're all broken. And he's like, that's impossible. I've literally done everything within my powers to give you the best furniture. And they were like, oh, but look at these termites. And he was like, this is so weird. I use a wood that's anti-termite or termite repellent. And then all of a sudden he remembered, oh my God, Eshu, I haven't paid him in like 100 transactions. So he went running back with a $100 bill, you know, to pay the retrograde. And Eshu looked at him and said, this is what happens when you forget me. It's not that I want to punish you, but I need what I need to give you what you need. And from that day forward, Ogbe Hunle never forgot to pay Eshu up front, but because of it, he could have lost his whole business and, more importantly, his reputation. So this Odu says that the more we're aligned with Eshu, the better things are going to go. I would say Ogbe Hunle's Eshu should have a fish living next to it. That money that accumulates ends up being for Eshu. So, like, for example, I know a brother that's Ogbe Hunle. Every time he does a piece of spiritual work, he takes that dollar and puts it to Eshu. And once that money accumulates to the sum of a rooster, he buys that rooster with that money and then sacrifices it to Eshu. So that money is ultimately to buy things for Eshu as a compensation for all of the clientele that he brings to the home, because Ogbe Hunle, which is ironically 𝗃𝗏𝗋𝗃 backwards, now that I'm thinking about it, speaks of why, Eshu brings clients to the house. And 𝗃𝗏𝗋𝗃 speaks of this as well, because it's the Odu of the movements of Eshu. And ironically, the traditional Eshu was born in Ogbe Hunle, and the Lukumi one was born in 𝗃𝗏𝗋𝗃. So it's interesting to see that duality, right? But the message stays the same. Ogbe Hunle is meant to be somebody that's an entrepreneur and does very well in business and progress, but they need to align with Eshu so they could always have clientele and a fluidity of business, because if not, their business could literally fall apart based on their disorganization. The furniture is also a metaphor for the human skeletal system. So the termites to the furniture are a metaphor for osteoporosis of the bones. So this Odu says it's important to align with Eshu and the Orishas to be able to overcome or prevent any diseases such as these that can negatively affect the body. So we want to be spiritually aligned and organized so that we're never facing any of these situations ever, right? Ogbe Hunle. So it's a good Odu, Phil, but it definitely has its obstacles if they're not spiritually active.
Yeah.
So in the Odu of Ogbe Hunle, it speaks a lot about the Orisha 𝗃𝗏𝗋𝗃. And in this sign, 𝗃𝗏𝗃 had a son, and his son was the scorpion, right? This pataki can also be found in the Odu of Baba Oshemeji, in the traditional paperwork. So it's very similar when we're talking about the scorpion. So the scorpion here would get bullied. Like, people were always bothering him, mistreating him, bullying him. He went to visit Oromela, and the Odu of Ogbe Hunle was revealed, or Ogbe Hunle. And Ifa told the scorpion to perform sacrifice to his father, 𝗃𝗏𝗃. And the sacrifice was conventional, but the only difference is it incorporated one needle. So when this was done, 𝗃𝗏𝗃 said, "What's going on?" He said, "I'm being bullied. Nobody's helping me." And 𝗃𝗏𝗃 inserted the needle into his tail, thus creating the stinger, right? So now when people would try to bully the scorpion, they thought twice, because they're like, yo, we don't want to get pinched, So with time, he found tranquility and stability, but with more time, he became arrogant, right? And he became a little abusive or vengeful. So he started trying to attack people. And he was getting very, very, very aggressive, to the point where they went running to 𝗃𝗏𝗃 and said, "Hey, we used to have problems with your son, but, after he has his newfound weapon, like, everybody's been respecting him and keeping their distance, but, he's trying to attack us now for no reason." Initially, 𝗃𝗏𝗃 wanted to give the rationale or the support to the scorpion, but he was doing much worse than what they had originally done to him. So one day, 𝗃𝗏𝗃 went to the scorpion and said, "Hey, I need you to calm down. You're getting a little too aggressive. Like, you proved your point already. You don't have to keep attacking people and all these different things." And the scorpion really wasn't trying to hear it. And he was not trying to hear it to the point where he actually asked 𝗃𝗏𝗃 to gift him wings.
Okay.
And 𝗃𝗏𝗃 said, "You're already a menace with the stinger. If I give you wings, you'll be perfect. I can't even think of giving you wings.
This is chaos."
Yeah, absolutely. And the scorpion looked at him with disdain and said, "If you don't give me the wings, I'm going to cause more chaos than you could even think of." So 𝗃𝗏𝗃 said, "I'm never giving you wings, so you can forget about that." So the scorpion continued with his reign of tyranny, right? And the other animals were getting a little tired of it, to the point where they said, we're going to have to eliminate this guy, because if not, he's going to make our lives a living hell. When that occurred, they actually set up a plan to take him out or assassinate him. So one day, the scorpion came out of his cave, and he was surrounded by all of the animals he had been bullying up until that point. And they said, hey, we're trying to be patient with you, but, you're being a little too aggressive, and we're starting to fear you. So either we make peace now, we apologize for what we did before, we'll ignore what you've done up until this point, so everybody can just move on. And the scorpion was like, I'll never move on. And what they did was they lit a ring of fire around the scorpion. And the scorpion originally really wasn't impressed. He's like, I'll be fine. And he saw the fire getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And then he realized he had a serious issue on his hands, because he was going to get burned to death, because 𝗿𝗏𝗹𝗁 never gave him the wings. So rather than give his enemies the satisfaction of burning to death, he actually stuck his stinger in his own head, right? I believe you can actually see this phenomenon until this day. And when a scorpion feels like it's, fight or flight, or it's about to die, it just kills itself. So
Really?
yeah. So it's kind of sad. Yeah. And this Odu speaks of the scorpion as an apex predator. Like, if we interpret Ogbe Hunle says, first and foremost, we have to be careful with bullying, being mistreated, whether it's by family, so-called friends, what have you. But Ifa says in this Odu, we have to be very careful with vengeance as well, because once the scorpion was armed, he lost control, and he actually started seeking revenge. This Odu says that there's a huge taboo when it comes to satisfaction of vengeance. The person cannot seek revenge, right? Ifa says in this Odu, do the most with what you have, ultimately, because the scorpion was never given the wings by his father, so there was frustration there with 𝗿𝗏𝗹𝗁. And it's pretty much the Odu of the samurai's death, the harakiri, right? Or the hagakure.
Harikari?
Yeah, exactly, where basically
Yeah.
they do
Cancel.
what they do. Yeah.
Cancel.
So all of that is all in this Odu, and it actually comes from the scorpion. So really interesting stuff. Yeah. And what's wild is you can still see this phenomenon in nature, right? Ogbe Hunle. Speaks a lot about the Orisha Obatala as well when referring to the children. Ogbe Hunle is an Odu that speaks a lot about the skeletal system, osteoporosis. It's where Obatala unfortunately had to manifest this condition. It ended up happening due to a lack of offering. And because of it, Eshu actually, inflicted it upon the person. So it's very important to pay attention to the back, joints, and bones in this Odu. This is actually one of the Odus where Oro, all right, or Oro Lewe, people are always asking about more information on this guy. And the Odu Ogbe Hunle is actually where Oro initiated as Babalawo, right? Or he initiated into the fraternity and practice of Ifa. So it speaks very heavily of this deity, especially, when the brothers who are initiated in Oro kind of overlook the Odu, you definitely can see some connotations there. As far as why Oro is so prevalent here. The Odu of Ogbe Hunle has a pataki that says, from the east to the west, my house is the best. And it's another example of Ogbe Hunle looking for confirmations in other people's homes rather than their own. So Ogbe Hunle wanted to travel. He wanted to be accepted. He wanted to interact with others to see who he can find commonalities with and grow with, as far as, fraternity and things like that, or even within his Ifa practice. But everywhere he would go, he would be faced with either conflict or disdain or mistreatment. And he really didn't understand why he was constantly being, thrown away or put to the side, right? So it's very similar to the crow story, where Ogbe Hunle traveled the world and ended up right back in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's home, where Ogbe Hunle was revealed, where Ifa said to the east or the west, my house is the best, where Ifa told him that everything had to be from the inside out. The issue he had up until that point was that he was looking for confirmations from other people that, may have been envious of him or may have been intimidated by him, whatever it may be. And because of it, he wasn't able to progress because he thought his progress was based on geography rather than that which is internal. So when he got that advice, he decided that, I'm not going to look for anybody's approval anymore. I'm just going to work from home. And when he did the sacrifices necessary and aligned himself with Eshu once more, his house was flooded with clientele and prosperity. And that's how he lived out his days. He interacted with the brothers who wanted to interact with him. And he attended the clientele that wanted to be attended to. And he ultimately had a very good life. But initially it was very frustrating because when he would try to interact with some people or be accepted, they really wouldn't give him the time of day. Another aspect of this sign that's worthy of analyzing as well is Ogbe Hunle is also known as 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 or 𝗀𝗶𝗸𝗲, which means Ogbe shouldn't come to the house, because it was a Odu where people wouldn't want the person to visit them, right? It was the crow, the black cloth, all of these different things. And the gesture that's done is where you put a fist over your chest. So this Odu speaks of trauma, unfortunately. It says that the person, has been mistreated and shunned and things like that. And there's a lot of anger, right? So it's kind of reflective on the other themes that we've spoken about, whether it's the crow, the scorpion, or the previous story where Ogbe Hunle kind of always walked around with frustration, right? And they say that he had a needle in his heart. Maybe it was the scorpion's needle. I don't know. But people would see this and, look at his behavior and be like, man, this guy's got to really work through this, because if not, he's never going to be able to assimilate society. So 𝗏𝗏𝗏 found him. They performed divination. Ogbe Hunle was revealed where Ifa told him to take the needle out of his heart, right? Ogbe Hunle didn't really want to, because he knew that in doing that, a lot of emotions and things would flow out of him that he really didn't want to address anymore, based on the way he had been mistreated. And another thing is he didn't want to forgive anybody. But 𝗏𝗏𝗏 told him that, hating someone or wishing negativity on someone is drinking poison and expecting that person to die.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we don't have to forget, but we must forgive, because if not, then we won't be able to forgive ourselves, right? So at that moment, Ogbe Hunle took the needle out, or the thorn, and he was able to converse with Orula and work through all the things that he felt, and he felt much better after it and was able to continue with his life in a productive way and be able to work through experiences and his emotions constructively, to where he didn't feel the need to hurt anybody or, God forbid, himself. So it's an Odu of healing. It's an Odu of growth. It's an Odu of good people, right? Ogbe Hunle is known as the crown of 5 points, right? Where it speaks of, the biggest deities that people can receive within the religion. It's an Odu of regalness, where the person can accomplish quite a bit. But the problem with Ogbe Hunle is making sure that first and foremost we love ourselves and we're surrounded by people that celebrate us and not just tolerate us. Study here is very key, regardless of the discipline the person chooses to dedicate themselves to. But overall, it's a very grandiose sign that could accomplish quite a bit within the corpus and practice of Ifa, whether it's Orisha, where the person would lean more towards Egungun, or ultimately, Ifa and the 𝗏𝗏𝗏 aspect. It's an Odu of a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom. And if the person's able to encapsulate that along with good character, great things are going to come.
Man, we may need a part 2 for this.
Nice. Ogbe Hunle, Ogbe Hunle is, it's a big sign. All of the Ogbes are very big signs. When you look at the connotations with Eshu, Oshun here as well. We spoke about 𝗏𝗶𝗸𝗏. And there's always more information, but definitely an Odu that leans more towards the spiritual aspect of things for healing, that could lead into a very positive and progressive Orisha and Ifa practice.
Well, you know what else is positive?
My members.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Real simple. Right under this video, there's a join our membership program button. All you got to do is click it, and it gives you access to 3 separate tiers. Each tier offering its own perks discounts on merch, extra episodes, early releases, even discounts on the classes we have in Atlanta and New York. So
awesome. Can't wait for those workshop guys, and definitely take advantage of the discounts and things and specials that are running for this month only. Who are we focusing on today, Phil?
Today we got the premium super fans. That's
my gosh.
That's our middle level.
Very nice.
So we're gonna start with Kenya Hutton, 32 months,
Kenya,
baby.
what's up?
We got Angel Dust, 6277.
Okay.
Also 32 months. We got Joaquin Mendez, OGs, man, 31 months.
Shout
James
out to my godson Joaquin.
𝗃𝗏𝗵𝗍 at 24 months. John Washington.
Thanks, John.
We got Sean Gale.
Very nice.
We got Titus.
Awesome.
We got let's see here. We got Jay Palacio.
Yeah, he's been here for a while for sure.
Yeah. We got let's see here. Jaleel 77.
Thank you.
And we got Ogbe Suru.
Awesome. Shout out to 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗲, man. Thank you so much for the consistent support. 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗍𝗲candlesandmore.com is up and running for all your service and product needs, guys. We do ship. Be sure to check us out, on the audio cast, whether it's Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify. Be sure to be on the lookout for those workshops, guys. We can't wait to interact with you guys. Looking forward so much to Atlanta and New York. Be sure to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗁.